The first time I saw an axolotl in person, I thought someone had photoshopped a dragon into a fish tank. Those feathery gills, that constant smile, just floating there like something out of a fantasy novel. I was completely hooked. But here's what nobody tells you up front. These things need cold water, like refrigerator cold. Get it wrong by even a few degrees, and you're looking at a sick animal real fast. I'm Kenji Takahashi, and I've learned this lesson the expensive way so you don't have to. You're listening to the Pet Parent Podcast. Quick heads up, the research and everything you're hearing is written and fact-checked by actual experts, but the voice you're listening to right now is AI-generated. Just wanted to be upfront about that. If you've been listening for a while, thanks for coming back. Really glad you're here. And if you're new to the show, welcome. We put out new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, covering all things pet care, from the straightforward stuff to the topics that need a little more unpacking. Let's jump right in. When I started researching how to actually keep one of these Mexican salamanders alive, I realized they're nothing like the tropical fish I'd been keeping for years. The water temperature alone is a whole different ballgame. Skip the proper cycling process, and ammonia burns become a genuine threat to those delicate gills. This is a complete walkthrough of everything I've learned about setting up a proper axolotl habitat, from picking the right tank size all the way through to getting those critical water parameters dialed in perfectly. Whether you're brand new to aquatic pets or you've kept fish before and want to branch into amphibians, you'll get the full step-by-step process for creating a safe, thriving environment for these fascinating creatures. Here's the reality check right up front. Plan for about 4 to 6 weeks of total setup time to properly cycle the tank before you add your axolotl. Patience here is absolutely essential. You cannot rush this part. First, let's talk about what you'll actually need. For the tank itself, you're looking at a minimum 20-gallon long for one axolotl or a 40-gallon if you want two. You'll need an aquarium chiller or at least a cooling fan, and this is essential for maintaining that 60 to 64 degree Fahrenheit water temperature. For filtration, either a canister filter or a sponge filter rated for your tank size works well. Check the link below to see current pricing on quality sponge filters. You also need a lid or glass canopy because axolotls can jump when they get startled. For substrate, either fine sand with a grain size under 1 millimeter or just go bare bottom with no substrate at all. Get 2 to 3 hide caves, things like PVC pipes, terracotta pots, or aquarium-safe hides. You want a low-intensity LED aquarium light, preferably something dimmable. A liquid water test kit for ammonia, nitrite, nitrate, and pH is non-negotiable. Grab a dechlorinator like Seachem Prime or a similar water conditioner. You need a reliable thermometer, either digital or glass. Keep a turkey baster or gravel vacuum around for spot cleaning waste. Pick up beneficial bacteria starter like Seachem Stability or Fritz Turbo Start, and if you want plants, stick with Java Fern, Anubias, or Marimo moss balls, all low-light, cold-tolerant species. Now, choosing the right tank size and location. The absolute minimum for a single adult axolotl is a 20-gallon long aquarium. That's 30 inches by 12 inches by 12 inches. But honestly, I recommend starting with a 40-gallon breeder if you've got the space. In my experience, bigger is always better with aquatic animals. It gives you more water volume to dilute waste, more stable parameters, and more room for your axolotl to actually explore and exercise. Tank dimensions matter more than just the gallon number, though. Axolotls are bottom dwellers. They spend about 90% of their time walking along the substrate, so floor space trumps height every single time. A 20-gallon long gives you 30 inches of horizontal space, while a standard 20-gallon high, which is 24 by 12 by 16 inches, offers less walking area despite being the same volume. That extra length makes a real difference for their quality of life. Place your tank somewhere that stays naturally cool and away from direct sunlight or heat sources like radiators or south-facing windows. I learned this one the hard way. My first axolotl tank sat near a window, and even with a chiller running, the afternoon sun would spike temperatures by 3 or 4 degrees. My axolotl was visibly stressed until I moved the whole setup. Choose a sturdy stand that can support the full weight. A 40-gallon tank with substrate and decor weighs around 400 to 450 pounds when it's filled. Make sure you've got access to electrical outlets for all your equipment. Temperature control is the single biggest challenge with axolotl keeping. These salamanders are native to cold mountain lakes in Mexico. They require water between 60 and 64 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, with 64 being the absolute upper limit. Prolonged exposure to temperatures above 70 degrees can cause severe stress, immune suppression, and even death. Most homes stay warmer than this, so plan your budget accordingly. Aquarium chillers run anywhere from $200 to $600. Clip-on fans are cheaper, maybe $30 to $60, but they're way less reliable if you live in a hot climate. Moving on to filtration. This is where you need to balance two competing needs: strong biological filtration to handle their considerable waste output, and gentle water flow that won't buffet their delicate gills or stress them out. Axolotls produce more waste than most fish of equivalent size, so you need a filter rated for at least 3 to 4 times your actual tank volume. For a 40-gallon tank, I'd choose a filter rated for 120 to 150 gallons per hour turnover. What I've found works best is either a canister filter with the output directed against the tank wall to diffuse the flow, or a large sponge filter powered by an air pump. Sponge filters provide excellent biological filtration. They're nearly silent, and they create minimal current, perfect for axolotls. The downside is they're less aesthetically pleasing, and they require slightly more frequent cleaning. Canister filters offer more versatility and stronger mechanical filtration, but you'll need to baffle the output to prevent creating a current that just exhausts your axolotl as it tries to swim. Avoid hang-on back filters if you can. The waterfall effect they create disturbs the surface too much and can stress axolotls, though you can work around this by positioning the outflow against the back wall or adding a pre-filter sponge to slow the current. Whatever filter you choose, fill it with biological media like ceramic rings or bioballs. These provide surface area for the beneficial bacteria that will process ammonia and nitrite in your cycling tank. Install your filter, but don't turn it on yet. We'll start it during the cycling process. Position the intake and output where they'll provide gentle circulation without creating strong currents in one area. I like to place the intake in one back corner and aim the output toward the front glass at a downward angle. This creates a gentle roll pattern across the bottom where axolotls spend their time. Now let's talk substrate. This question trips up a lot of new keepers, and for good reason. Choose the wrong material, and you're risking potentially fatal intestinal impaction. Axolotls hunt by suction feeding, basically hoovering up food along with whatever substrate happens to be nearby. If they ingest gravel sized between 2 and 10 millimeters, it can lodge in their digestive tract and create a life-threatening blockage. You've got 3 safe options: fine sand with a grain size under 1 millimeter, large river rocks that are too big to swallow, typically 2+ inches, or bare bottom with no substrate at all. Each one has trade-offs I've experienced firsthand. Fine sand is my personal preference. It passes safely through their digestive system if they accidentally ingest it. It provides a natural-looking substrate, and it gives axolotls good traction for walking. Check the link below for quality aquarium sand options. The grain size needs to be fine enough to be safe, but heavy enough that it doesn't cloud the water excessively. Rinse it thoroughly before adding 1 to 2 inches to your tank. The downside is waste settles on top rather than falling through, so you'll need to spot clean more frequently with a turkey baster or siphon. Large river rocks are safe, but expensive to cover the bottom of a 40-gallon tank, and waste can get trapped between rocks where it's hard to clean. Bare-bottom tanks are the easiest to maintain and let you spot every bit of waste immediately, but they provide no grip for axolotls and can look pretty stark and clinical. Some keepers report their axolotls seem stressed on bare glass, constantly slipping as they try to walk, though others have no issues. Whatever you choose, never use regular aquarium gravel. I've seen heartbreaking posts in axolotl forums from keepers who lost their animals to impaction from inappropriate substrate. It's one of the most preventable causes of death in captive axolotls. Next up, dialing in water parameters and temperature control. This is the technical part that makes or breaks your axolotl tank setup. Fill your tank with dechlorinated tap water, treating it with a water conditioner that neutralizes chlorine, chloramine, and heavy metals. I use Chem Prime because it also temporarily detoxifies ammonia and nitrite, which is helpful during cycling. Test your tap water parameters before adding it to the tank. Axolotls thrive in pH between 6.5 and 8.0. They're fairly adaptable here. You want 0 parts per million ammonia, 0 parts per million nitrite, and nitrates below 20 parts per million. General hardness should fall between 7 and 14, and carbonate hardness between 3 and 8. Most municipal tap water falls within acceptable ranges, but if your pH is extreme or you're on well water, you may need to adjust parameters or use a water conditioner specifically designed to stabilize pH. Temperature management is where things get expensive if you live in a warm climate. Install your aquarium chiller according to the manufacturer's instructions. This usually involves inline tubing connected to your filter. Or set up clip-on fans to blow across the water surface. Monitor temperature religiously during the first week to ensure your cooling method maintains 60 to 64 degrees consistently. I check mine twice daily, once in the morning and once during the warmest part of the afternoon. If you're using fans for evaporative cooling, be prepared to top off the tank frequently. I was adding a gallon or more per week to my 40-gallon when I ran dual fans during summer. Evaporative cooling also concentrates minerals and raises hardness over time, so you want to do partial water changes more frequently than with a chiller. Chillers are more expensive up front, but far more reliable and lower maintenance in the long run, especially if your home regularly exceeds 75 degrees. Don't add your axolotl yet. The tank needs to cycle first, which brings us to the next critical step. Cycling your tank completely before adding an axolotl. This is the step that tests every new keeper's patience, but it's absolutely non-negotiable. Cycling establishes colonies of beneficial bacteria that convert toxic ammonia from waste and uneaten food into slightly less toxic nitrite, and then into relatively harmless nitrate. Without these bacteria, ammonia and nitrite spike to lethal levels within days of adding an axolotl. Start by adding a source of ammonia to feed the bacteria as they establish. You can use pure ammonia from a hardware store. Make sure it contains no surfactants, fragrances, or other additives, just ammonia and water. Or use fish food, which breaks down into ammonia, or a commercial cycling product. Add enough to bring ammonia levels to 2 to 4 parts per million, then dose beneficial bacteria starter according to package instructions. Turn on your filter and any other equipment except the chiller or fans. No point cooling an empty tank for weeks. Test water daily for ammonia, nitrite, and nitrate using a liquid test kit. The strip tests aren't accurate enough for cycling monitoring. You'll see ammonia levels drop as nitrite appears, then nitrite will spike before nitrate starts climbing. The whole process typically takes 4 to 6 weeks at room temperature, though it runs slower in cold water. Here's where axolotl tank setup differs from tropical fish. Cold water slows bacterial growth significantly. Some keepers cycle at room temperature, 70 to 75 degrees, to speed things up, then slowly lower temperature once the cycle completes. I tried this and it worked fine, but you need to reduce temperature gradually, no more than 2 to 3 degrees per day, to avoid crashing your bacterial colonies.
The alternative is cycling at your target 60 to 64 degrees from the start, which takes 6 to 8 weeks but ensures your bacteria are adapted to cold conditions from day one. Your tank is cycled when it can process 2 parts per million ammonia to 0 ammonia and 0 nitrite within 24 hours, leaving only nitrate. Do a 50% water change to bring nitrate below 20 parts per million, and your tank is finally ready for an axolotl. Now we can talk about adding decorations, hides, and plants. With cycling complete, it's time to make your tank feel like a home rather than a sterile box. Axolotls need multiple hiding spots where they can retreat when they feel exposed or stressed. In nature, they'd shelter under logs, rocks, and aquatic vegetation during daylight hours. PVC pipes, 4-inch diameter, cut to 6 to 8-inch lengths, work perfectly and cost almost nothing at hardware stores. Just sand down any sharp edges before adding them to your tank. Terracotta pots with the bottom broken out also make excellent hides. I've used these in every axolotl tank I've set up. You can find them at garden centers for a couple dollars each. Avoid decorations with small openings where an axolotl might get stuck, or anything with sharp edges or rough textures that could damage their delicate skin. Their skin is permeable and tears more easily than fish scales, so smooth surfaces are essential. Live plants offer multiple benefits. They absorb nitrates, provide additional cover, and make the tank look more natural. The challenge is finding species that tolerate both cold water and low light, since bright lighting stresses axolotls. Java fern, Anubias, and Marimo moss balls are my go-to choices. All three thrive in 60 to 64 degree water and low light conditions. Attach Java fern and Anubias to rocks or driftwood using fishing line or superglue. Yes, cyanoacrylate superglue is safe once cured. Don't bury the rhizome in substrate because that causes rot. Avoid plants with delicate leaves or stems that an axolotl might damage while walking through them. I tried growing some Amazon swords in my first axolotl tank and watched my axolotl bulldoze through them repeatedly until the plants looked like they'd been through a shredder. Stick with hardy, slow-growing species with tough leaves. If you're not confident with live plants yet, artificial silk plants designed for aquariums work fine. Just avoid plastic plants with sharp edges. Test any decoration by running a piece of pantyhose over it. If the material snags, it can damage axolotl skin. Finally, acclimating and introducing your axolotl. After weeks of preparation, you're finally ready to bring your axolotl home. Proper acclimation is crucial because sudden parameter changes can shock their system, even if the water in your tank is objectively better than what they came from. Temperature shock is especially dangerous with these cold water amphibians. Float the bag or container your axolotl arrived in for 15 to 20 minutes to equalize temperature. But don't let this go much longer than that if they shipped in a small volume of water. Ammonia can build up quickly in confined spaces. Once temperatures match, begin the drip acclimation process. Use airline tubing with a valve to drip water from your tank into their container at about 2 to 4 drips per second. Continue for 45 to 60 minutes until the water volume in their container has doubled. Watch for signs of stress during acclimation. Rapid gill fluttering, curled tail tip, or floating belly up all indicate distress. If you see these, slow down the drip rate. When acclimation is complete, use a soft net or plastic container to transfer your axolotl into the tank, avoiding the water they arrived in, which may contain ammonia or contaminants. Expect your axolotl to hide for the first day or two. This is completely normal. New surroundings are stressful, and they need time to explore and settle in. Keep the lights dim or off for the first 24 hours and resist the urge to feed immediately. Wait until the following day to offer a small meal of earthworms, bloodworms, or axolotl pellets. Monitor water parameters daily for the first week after adding your axolotl. Sometimes the bioload from a new animal causes a mini-cycle, where you see small ammonia or nitrite spikes as your bacterial colonies adjust. If you detect any ammonia or nitrite, do an immediate 25 to 50% water change and test again in 12 hours. Once parameters stabilize at 0 ammonia, 0 nitrite, and under 20 nitrate, you can drop to testing 2 to 3 times per week, then eventually weekly once your tank is fully mature. Let me share some pro tips and common mistakes. The biggest mistake I see with axolotl tank setup is underestimating the temperature challenge. A lot of new keepers figure they'll see how it goes with fans before investing in a chiller. Then they're scrambling to buy cooling equipment in July when their tank hits 72 degrees and their axolotl stops eating. If you live anywhere that reaches 80 degrees or higher during summer, budget for a chiller from day one. Trying to cheap out here puts your animal's life at risk. Another common pitfall is rushing the cycling process or skipping it entirely because you're excited to get your axolotl. I get it. Waiting 6 weeks when you've already bought your tank and supplies feels like torture. But adding an axolotl to an uncycled tank means daily water changes for weeks while you cycle with them inside, which is called fish-in cycling. Even with perfect diligence, you're exposing them to ammonia and nitrite burns on their gills. There's just no good reason to risk it. Start cycling before you even buy your axolotl and use the wait time to research their care, watch their behavior in videos, and learn to recognize signs of health versus stress. What I've found works really well is keeping Indian almond leaves in the tank. They release beneficial tannins that have mild antibacterial and antifungal properties. The water takes on a slight tea color, but it seems to reduce minor skin issues. Some hobbyists swear by them. Others see no difference, but they definitely don't hurt anything. Here's a pro tip I wish someone had told me. Keep frozen water bottles on hand as an emergency cooling backup. If your chiller fails during a heat wave or you need to bring the temperature down quickly, float a couple frozen bottles in the tank. Put them inside a plastic bag so melting ice doesn't dilute your water chemistry. This has saved my tanks more than once while waiting for equipment repairs. Don't panic if your axolotl occasionally floats to the surface and gulps air. They have primitive lungs and will sometimes supplement their gill respiration with surface breathing, especially if they've been active. It only becomes concerning if it happens constantly, which usually indicates water quality problems or temperature stress. Let me answer some frequently asked questions. What size tank does an axolotl need? A single axolotl needs a minimum 20-gallon long aquarium to provide adequate floor space, though a 40-gallon breeder is better and allows more stable water parameters. Add 10 to 15 gallons per additional axolotl and prioritize horizontal swimming space over tank height, since axolotls are bottom-dwelling amphibians that rarely swim to upper levels. How cold does an axolotl tank need to be? Axolotl tanks must maintain water temperature between 60 and 64 degrees Fahrenheit consistently, with 64 being the absolute maximum safe temperature. Prolonged exposure to temperatures above 68 degrees causes severe stress, immune suppression, and increased susceptibility to disease. Temperatures above 74 degrees can be fatal. Most keepers need an aquarium chiller or cooling fans to maintain appropriate temperatures year-round. Can I put an axolotl in an uncycled tank? You should never add an axolotl to an uncycled tank because without established beneficial bacteria, toxic ammonia and nitrite will spike to dangerous levels within 2 to 3 days and cause gill burns, stress, and potential death. Complete the nitrogen cycle first by dosing ammonia and monitoring water parameters for 4 to 6 weeks until the tank can process 2 parts per million ammonia to 0 ammonia and nitrite within 24 hours. What substrate is safe for axolotls? The only safe substrate options are fine sand with grain size under 1 millimeter, which passes through their digestive system if accidentally ingested, large river rocks 2+ inches in diameter that are too big to swallow, or bare bottom tanks with no substrate. Never use regular aquarium gravel sized between 2 and 10 millimeters because axolotls will ingest it during feeding and suffer potentially fatal intestinal impaction. Setting up an axolotl tank properly requires more patience and planning than most tropical fish setups, but watching these prehistoric-looking salamanders thrive makes every bit of effort worthwhile. The key elements: spacious horizontal tank dimensions, reliable temperature control to maintain 60 to 64 degrees, thorough cycling before adding your animal, and appropriate substrate choices all work together to create a safe environment where your axolotl can live for 10 to 15 years or more. Take your time with each step, especially the cycling process, and don't cut corners on temperature control equipment. These cold water amphibians have very little tolerance for heat, and failing to maintain proper temperatures is the single biggest cause of health problems in captive axolotls. If you've followed this guide and cycled your tank completely, you've already avoided the most common mistakes that plague new axolotl keepers. Your axolotl tank setup is complete. Now enjoy getting to know one of the aquarium hobby's most unique and endearing creatures. That wraps up this episode of the Pet Parent Podcast. Thanks for listening all the way through. New episodes come out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so you've always got something coming up. If you got something useful out of this one, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a 5-star rating and write a quick review. It actually makes a difference because that's how other people who are looking for solid pet care info end up finding the show. And go ahead and hit subscribe or follow so you get a notification the second a new episode drops. Talk to you soon.